Welcome to the Red Quill Studio. I'm Rachel Burright, and I'm here with Ron Marshall today. He is the former Montana representative for House District 87, which is the Hamilton area. Welcome, Ron. Thanks so much for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
So much has happened this week. I can't wait to hear all about it. But first, before we get to that, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of set the stage for our listeners today?
As far as what I do, a small business
How did you
owner.
get into politics? A little bit about yourself. This is your third term, you said. So
Right. Well, I got into politics because I opened a business. You build it, they will come. And unfortunately, we opened a business that was controversial back in the early stages that dealt with e-cigarettes and vaping. Okay. No big deal until 2015 session. We is when we had to start going up to the Capitol to defend something that a lot of people didn't understand, especially legislators. They had no clue as to what it was that these laws were coming in and going to do, these bills. And it was really frustrating because it's like, wait a minute, you guys are going to regulate something that you have no idea about it. So this went on for a couple, 3 sessions, and then in 2019, Nancy Balance, who was the representative here in this district, termed out, and I ran for the seat and was elected. And so that's how I entered the realm of politics as far as being an elected official. So,
necessity.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of people are saying, oh, you're just looking out for your own interest. Well, yeah, who isn't? But at the same time, there's other things to look at up there too. Because the one thing when we were up there, and yeah, we're up there as citizens, advocating for our industry, there's other issues in those halls that affect you directly as well. So you got to kind of look around and see what's coming. So that's where the field really spreads out. And so I had a lot of time in front of, as an advocate in front of business and labor. I did a few stints in front of the HHS committee, taxation committee, both in the House and the Senate side. So when I was elected, I went up there, and a lot of the veteran legislators and senators up there, pretty much knew who I was and, where I came from, my background and all that. And so I wouldn't say you just kind of fit right in, because once you get elected, if you've been up there any amount of time, you get elected, there's still a lot of things behind the scenes to learn. So what you see on the outside isn't, there's more to it than meets the eye.
It sounds like going into it, you knew quite a few people, had a little bit of a rapport built.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like that really helped pave the way for when you got the position?
Yeah. Because as time goes on, you meet people up in the Capitol, you go to different functions. They have like Lincoln Reagan dinners. They have tournaments and stuff, like golf tournaments for things. And you go to those functions, and everybody just kind of gets together, and, it's like you build this rapport with people. And so as time goes on, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I know that guy, I know this guy, I know that. And so, yeah, it was entertaining, to say the least. You get in there and it's like, okay, now what? Now you're a lawmaker. So what are you going to do? This is when the transition starts into what bills am I going to run, and, a lot of people, they sit there and go, geez, I don't know. And it's like, I had a list of stuff, and yeah, industry bills for my industry. I had a couple of them, but I also had other bills too. And people look at me, they forget about that. But I had bills that were going to regulate government employee travel because of the excessive spending and waste that they were doing on their credit cards and on their travel and their upgrades, all that. The waste, fraud, and abuse there was just atrocious, you know. So we start looking at stuff like that, but everybody forgets about that, until a time like this, and they all think, oh, you're just up there as a one issue representative. Not true.
Right, right. So when you're a legislator and you were in the House, did you find how was the committee process for you? Is that something that you were just appointed? Did you have a say in which committees you wanted to be on?
You you fill out what they call, you give you like a dream sheet of A committees, B committees, and C committees. Um, and then you have your standby or on call committees. So me, I was very familiar with a lot of the legislators and the inner workings of business and labor. And as a business person, I understood that. The process is you fill out this dream sheet and it goes in, and leadership ultimately will pick and choose who they want to put where. Some people want like judiciary. Well, sometimes you're not going to get it. In that case, a lot of times the discretion, when I first went in, the discretion of who was going to be on that committee was left up to the chairman. Um, but and I did have the chairman call me and say, hey, you want to be on judiciary? I'm like, not really. I'm not an attorney. And I was told, well, we don't want attorneys on judiciary. And I said, well, no, I'd rather be on business and labor. So I ended up on business and labor, and I didn't get on HHS the first session, but I got onto agriculture and then transportation. So I had an A, a B, and a C committee. Which was all right because you learn, you get outside. I've worked on ranches, I've dealt with transportation, so that's the beauty of a citizen legislature. There's a whole bunch of us up there that have business interest or worked in fields or done something that you can understand, that particular aspect. So if I don't know anything about drilling a water well, there's probably somebody up there who does. So it's a good combination.
So do you feel like that's really taken into consideration when they are creating the committees? It sounds like there's quite a bit of discretion for the committee to
Mhm.
chair.
Yeah. There's a lot of it. Like our business and labor committee, we had my first session. We had who's now Senator Mark Nolan. He was the chair. A great businessman. And then this last two sessions we had, Ed Buttrey, and Ed is very familiar with restaurants, gaming, alcohol, that area of the industry, which comes in handy because you can lean on people like that. Because for anybody who's ever looked into the alcohol laws in Montana, they're good luck trying to figure them out. They're pretty tangled web right there. But no, you've got people there from the insurance companies, you've got doctors, you name it, across the board. There's people on those committees, so especially that one. It's a pretty balanced out committee.
So it sounds like, it's hard for the public to really kind of know what happens before and after.
Mm.
All we see is that little piece there where we get to come and listen and testify and the questions and hear some of that, the informational witnesses and testify. So what happens before and after there when you are considering those bills? Do you guys have discussions, or how does that dynamic work?
So we'll take it back. So now we've got the committee layout, how that works. So I learned in my first session, being behind the curtain, as I call it, most of your bills you put in your bill draft, and those bills will come up in discussion here and there. It's like, what are you trying to do? You'll get input from the agencies if it's coming after an agency in one way, shape, form, or another. The lobbyists will start to come in, and they'll want to put their 2 cents worth in. You'll get told you can't do that. It'll never make it. That kind of thing. So I mean, yeah, it's a little bit hard to hear that it's like, wait a minute, what's wrong with it? Then you find out you've got all these people that are dead set against you up there, and they don't want to see your legislation pass. And even though it's good for the people of Montana, for the state, they don't want it. So those powers to be will eventually, they get a hold of leadership and put pressure on leadership in a number of ways, a great number of ways. You have to remember there's over 750 registered lobbyists in the state of Montana for 150 elected legislators. You do the math. There's plenty of them to go around, and they will take every opportunity they can to either prop up something or tear something down and get it killed. And they'll go through leadership to do it. This session, after talking with a couple other former legislators that have been paying attention to what's going on up there, they've even said that this is one of the most grotesque sessions they've ever seen up there.
So it sounds like it's not always very helpful. The lobbyists are typically hired by corporations or organizations to come in and influence, right, the bills in different ways that they want. But as you just mentioned, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily in the best interest for Montana.
Right.
So
right, yeah, and I mean, you've got some bills that people will put in. To give you an example, you got the low-hanging fruit, the easy ones where we're going to rename this section of road after somebody, or a bridge. We're going to, make Montana the state sport of Montana rodeo, or the state bird, or the state flower. That's easy, low-hanging fruit that you don't have to worry about that. I mean, last session, I think it was the huckleberry. Okay. Yeah. We're wasting time with that when we're supposed to be doing other stuff. But the other stuff, now the lobbyists will come in. The lobbyists, people don't know this. The lobbyists write bills. They will edit bills. They will push bills. They will bribe to get you to pass their bill. I mean, it's just unbelievable up there. And they'll go through and put pressure on whoever to either kill that bill or push that bill through. And if something happens in the system, one of the cogs gets caught up and they can't do it, they'll bail and make it look like, oh, well, but they'll come back and try it again. I guarantee you, it may not be dead until sine die. They will try to resurrect stuff out of the ashes. I mean, it's no joke up there. And then you also have a lot of other dynamics going on. With that, they'll start getting people to pick and choose sides and pit each other. They'll pit legislators against each other. So you got all this going on in the background. In the meantime, a bill pops up and you get a bunch of citizens together, go, hey, I'm going to go to the Capitol. We all got to go up there. We got to testify, on this bill. We don't like it or we like it. And so these people come up there and they'll go and sit there. They'll sign up and they'll take their turn. They get their time at the podium, the public engagement, right? It's all law. They have to do that. But what they don't understand, that's the only reason they get to do that. Most of the time, those bills will get up or down votes. They would get killed before that. You have to do that. A bill, once it's introduced, has to have a hearing by law. And after the hearing, that's when the dirty work goes on, because they will sit there and make it look good. I don't know. And the vote's already been decided before the hearings even happened. So you're just letting the people go through the motions, leading them on, and you shake your head because you already know where this bill's going. to vote for the bill or against the bill being it the morally right thing to do. The votes have been counted, the pressure's been put on. Yeah, it's disgusting, and I'm kind of sorry to say I've been a part of that, but I'm not going to do it anymore. I refuse to do it. The people need to know, because I hear people back here now saying, well, who's going to have our voice up there? It doesn't matter. You can take my dog and put her up there. The outcome's going to be the same. People don't understand. It doesn't matter who's sitting there pushing the button. That button's going to get pushed the way it needs to be pushed to satisfy the higher ups and the lobbyists and the special interests. So
can you maybe go back and touch on the lobbyists just a little bit there? You said that they come and apply pressure.
Oh yeah.
To the committee. Can you give us an example or two of maybe some different ways that happens?
Sure. What they do is they talk you down, and talk you down, and tell you, oh, this is going to be really bad because of this, and man, if you vote for this, it's going to look bad here or it's going to look bad there. And I've had 3 lobbyists on 3 different occasions come in, and I've had them tell me that they want to amend a bill of mine, and I'm like, no. And I told them to check with the agency, because it was for an agency, actually CCD, to check with the director there, because I'm not going to amend it, and I don't think the director wants to amend it, because the bill is what it is. It's a simple, straight up bill. And I've had lobbyists come in and go, oh, I've talked to the other 2 lobbyists, so-and-so and so-and-so, and I talked to the director at CCD, and they said it was okay if you were okay with it. Well, then you turn around and it's like, I'm not playing that game. I'm going to check. You go back. Nobody ever said anything like that. They'll lie to try to convince you. I mean, it's bad. It's bad.
Sounds like they're really manipulating the conversation. And maybe misrepresenting a bit.
Yeah. Oh, they do. They'll twist stuff in a bill. They'll take one little thing out of a bill, and if they don't like your bill, they'll pick it apart. They'll find something and it'll just turn everything against you. Some of those bills, they'll sit there and they'll go, okay, well, you go ahead. We're gonna oppose it. Which I had one tell me they're going to oppose it, and they couldn't give me a really good reason for it. And come to find out, your bill suddenly goes down the tubes, and it's like, wait a minute, where's the chairman of the committee? Where's leadership and all that? And they just shrug their shoulders, and you're just sitting there knowingly walking away with, going, yeah, something happened. Well, what was it? The longer you're there, the more you realize the pressure's put on. You kill this bill, I'll kill your bill. Tit for tat. Okay. And that happens quite a bit. That happens quite a bit up there. I've seen good legislation die up there simply because people don't like the sponsor. The legislation is great, but the sponsor, they don't like the sponsor. And it's like, I don't like that guy. So and this happens on both sides of the aisle. I'll just kill it. And it's like, I don't understand, but we gotta play that game.
So for the public coming up and testifying and being involved, how much weight does that hold to a committee if behind the scenes these other dynamics are happening?
Well, if you are the union fighting a right to work bill, that's huge. If you're a regular citizen coming up there to testify against, a bill that's going to increase your registration fees on your vehicle by a couple of bucks, they don't care. You can zoom in. Those bills are decided. Anything budgetary is decided before the session even gavels in. The second floor, the governor's office, they all have the budget and they set their budget. Well, when we come in, we're supposed to control the purse strings up there. And the Appropriations Committee right now, they hold that line. They do what they want to do. If you come in with anything outside of that purview, they will kill it dead. And I'll give you the example. I ran a bill for Social Security income tax to remove it, exempt Social Security from income tax. And I was told that bill was going to die before it got there. And I said, we'll find out. And I ran it. It passed the floor. It went down to the Appropriations Committee. And I had some people on there, some pretty strong, hardcore conservatives that voted no on the House floor. And I had one of them tell me, because I asked him, I said, you voted no on my bill. And he says, no, I voted not only no, but hell no on your bill. Now, you're on appropriations. You're always talking tax cuts and giving the money back to the people and all this, but then I bring you a simple bill and you vote no, and you won't give me an explanation. And so, yeah, I mean, and that was right in the beginning of the session. I suddenly started seeing more and more of this going on. And it's like, this is becoming so gross, so far-fetched that I questioned it then about what am I doing here? And it just constantly built up till, Saturday. I pretty much had come to the realization that nothing's going to get changed. It's only going to get worse from this point forward. And, why keep sitting up here beating your head against the wall? And now, with a couple of 3 friends left up there, people I trust, there's nothing was going to happen. I've had run-ins with lobbyists out in public, harassing myself, my wife, and a friend at dinner. I've had them try to say that I embarrassed them or accosted them during a hearing when they were at the podium. And that was a lie, because all hearings are recorded, so you could go back and watch the tape. And this gentleman never even came up to the podium, never even testified. So how could I accost him, so he said, if he never testified? I never asked him a question. So there's that. And then there was a rumor floating around that there was 5 representatives, something like that wanted to file an ethics complaint against me. Well, hey, I know a threat when I hear one. So 24 hours later, I'm out. So
A lot of ways to apply that pressure, sounds like.
right. Yeah.
So you mentioned that the budget in particular is already decided.
Oh, yeah.
And laid in place there by the governor. Can you tell me a little bit about what those priorities are?
Well, like in this session, they had prioritized, they're going to do these tax cuts, the homestead exemption and all that. They were going to look at all these little tax cut packages, the feel good stuff. They automatically had funded Medicaid expansion, which everybody said, the talk was, well, we can't kill it in the House, but we can in the Senate. So we'll just pass it through the House and they'll kill it in the Senate. Well, if you paid attention to the news, it's headed to the governor's desk. That didn't happen. Well, sure, because he already planned to have it funded. Anything they wanted to take away or add on to that, that's not going to happen. So that process starts way back before we even get going. They sit down and do the collective bargaining with the employees unions and everything before we get there. The only thing they send us is House Bill 13, which is the employee pay package every session, to approve that for the next 2 years. So the legislature or the House in Montana, the House is supposed to control the purse strings, but we don't. We don't. We're just, I don't know. It's kind of like going to mom and dad and borrowing $1 to go do something. There's no real appropriation unless the appropriation kings want that money for something else or to approve something for something else. Yeah. Discretionary spending. Oh, they have it. They can they can okay pet projects. I mean, a $5 million one-time funding for aquatic centers across Montana. So that was a good one. $5 million for swim centers across Montana. Another one was another $5 million for senior centers to fund grants for those. Only so much, per county. And so it was very limited when you got down to it. It didn't mean anything. It was chump change. And, I was sitting here thinking, if you want to fund an aquatic center for a city or a county, isn't that a local level issue? Why are the state taxpayers paying for a swimming pool in Havre when I live in Hamilton? It just doesn't make sense. We have people down here who can't afford to stay in their houses because the local property taxes are so high. That's what we should be worrying about. But they're worried about funding, swimming pools and senior centers. I guess the senior center would be good if they could get the money, because some of these seniors, if they can't get these property taxes under control, that's where they're going to end up living. It's sickening.
So when you say the governor has already had the conversations and the budgetary conversations, and like you mentioned, Medicaid expansion, how it's already been decided.
Oh, yeah.
Who are the people involved in those conversations? What organizations, and specifically, if there's any leadership involved from our Montana Legislature in those conversations?
Oh, sure. You've got the governor's office, his budget director. There's one to go to. You're going to have talks with the Montana Medical Association. The person in charge of that runs around up there, her name is Jean Branscombe. She's the CEO. They're going to be in talks with that. Then you have American Heart Association, Cancer, Lung. All those people are going to have their little fingers in there, because they've got, the nonprofits get in there and just start sucking up. The Nurses Associations, any doctors, dentists, all the medical industry, the pharmaceutical, they're all going to come in there, and they're going to want to know what's in the package. What can we get? What can we do? How can we keep this going? And, so there's always something in there. They come in there wanting, and we'll push this through. It's going to be great for us. And, you had all these hospitals sitting there going, well, if we don't renew Medicaid expansion, we're going to go broke. We're going to close down. And I thought to myself, okay, so Medicaid expansion came in around 2015, 2019 is when it was on the ballot and got shot down by the electorate, I might say, before it got passed by the House. So the people said no on the ballot, but yet the legislature, they still went ahead and did it anyway. So there's your voice of the people. But these hospitals that say they're going to go broke, and I sit there and go, well, if you're going to go broke, what were you doing before Medicaid expansion? Could you just answer me that? They're just, and there's, well, the cost of everything. I don't care about the cost. What did you do before you had this? Because 90% of it is paid for by the federal government. Well, the federal government gets their money from who? Oh, the same people that they get it from here. So it's the taxpayers paying for the whole thing. Just because it's federal money doesn't change the fact it's still taxpayer money. That's the kind of thing you see. And it's just like, we've got all this money sitting in Helena, and all people up there want to do is spend it, give it back. Oh, no, we can't do that. I've heard it said in committee hearings when we had the big budget surplus last session. I heard conservative legislators sitting there going, we can't give this $100 million back to the people. What are they going to do with it? Seriously. That's what you hear up there. They want it for pet projects and everything. It's just like, it makes your head explode. It really does.
When that money could really go quite a long ways to helping the citizens of Montana, just to make up the difference, so we're not hurting so much.
Right.
Like you
Well,
said,
the surplus. I mean, you got to remember, the state budget comes out of your income tax. Local taxes are your property taxes. So there's a fine line there. Now, this is, if you remember, everybody got an income tax rebate last session. Remember that? Everybody, you get a return back on the budget surplus. Well, here's the other coup de grace that they did. They pulled one over on everybody on this one. So you had to file so that you could get a return on your property taxes. You're going to get a refund on your property taxes from the state. Okay, property taxes are paid locally. So we took taxpayer money that was surplus money, okay, income tax money, and we gave it to property owners. Talk about redistribution. And it was all legal like. Oh, and then 2/3 of that big pot, right? They kept that because not everybody qualified for that. Renters didn't qualify for that. Yet their income tax check went there, but they didn't get the full amount of the return because somebody else got it that owned the house that put in for the property tax return. I mean, this is the kind of crap that goes on up there that people, if they don't pay attention, they haven't paid attention for so long. Here we are. It's
Right.
it's
Well, and
insane.
yeah, taxes are one of those things that are so complex
Yeah.
and I think can be pretty daunting for most of us. But it sounds like that in particular really opened up another source of revenue
Hmm.
um, to be able to use.
Yeah.
So let's hop topics just a little bit. We've heard a lot of legislators talking about our judiciary.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I heard we had like 27 bills go in, and everybody wants to. There's a lot of the hot button words that we like to campaign on,
Yep.
and I heard pretty well across the board. Pretty much all, at least the conservative candidates, talk about some issues with that we're having with the judiciary and need to shift some things.
Mhm.
But I haven't seen or heard many at this point um, following through and really talking about our judiciary at this point. It seems that mum's the word.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Pretty much. I mean, we had a few bills that crossed the floor that dealt with the judiciary. Make it partisan, that kind of thing. Again, low hanging fruit. This is the stuff that, yeah, it'll grab a headline and, oh, look, they're going to straighten out the judiciary. Well, we had the opportunity. In fact, I spoke to a former legislator about this earlier today, and it came up where they had worked all through the interim. They were actually on the verge of they were going to remove a chief justice, and they had it all lined out. And at the last minute, the one person who you would never think would protect the judiciary opted not to carry it out. And that would have been our attorney general. And I beginning to wonder after everything I've been through exactly the judiciary and the attorney general's office have got this big fight going on, but I'm just trying to figure out who's protecting who. Because it's dead. That's a mess. And the judiciary, the bills I've heard that they wanted to do, um, yeah, good luck. I mean, most of them I think are starting over in the Senate, from what I understood. And we all know what's going on in the Senate. I mean, I think I went over there like 3 times this session, and I tried to avoid it like the plague because you didn't know what you were going to find over there or what was going to greet you. It was just better off to avoid that area and just stay away from it. But yeah, some of the stuff I've heard, has been the voting. The voting bills as far as, are they going to be partisan or nonpartisan, and how that kind of went down. And of course, we had the 4 speeches on the House about, you can't do that. No, you can. And my opinion is like, it probably should be at this point, because after the last election, I mean, if you weren't paying attention, you kind of know which side of the aisle that the judges were on. I mean, it was pretty much a given. Um, but I do have a problem with our Supreme Court in the fact that you know they are a third branch of government. All communications that we did as legislators, okay, we could sit there and communicate all we wanted. Somebody wanted to come in and do a FOIA on us, and get those communications. Freedom of Information Act, you got to cough that stuff up. But for one branch of the government that, of all things, it's the judicial branch to sit there and say, no, that's private. You can't have that. Yeah, they deserve everything they get coming at them, because to me, it's like it's rules for thee, but not for me. That's part of the problem. We have a judiciary up there who doesn't seem to want to play on the same field. It's almost like Caesar standing there with their thumb out, between the two warring factions, going, I don't know, and no, they're in this just as deep, if not deeper, than everybody else up there.
Wow. So I know I've heard the governor mention our judiciary needing some work as well. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
heard that he's jumped in the ring here to weigh in on that. I know he influences the budget quite a bit. We talked about
Mm-hmm.
that. What is he doing as far as influencing the bills in the judiciary? Is that a conversation that you're aware is being had?
I have no idea on that. I don't sit on judiciary, and like I said, I've kind of avoided that for obvious reasons. And you know, I don't really know where he stands on that. I've never had the opportunity to sit down and discuss stuff with him. I know I've had invites to go to like his place to have a sit down with other legislators and all that. Problem is, when you have two A committees in one day and all this other stuff, I can't break out of there at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and go, I gotta go. No, you're there you have a committee assignment. You should be at your committee assignment from the time you gavel in to the time you gavel out, not just take off 5 minutes after it starts because I gotta go have a powwow with the governor. You know, um, would I like to sit down and talk with him? Sure, but I can't. If we all have to leave that, I mean, it makes it look even worse. I mean, some of the stuff you want to sit there and listen, but you can't. And I just, me personally, I guess I'll just read about it in a bill if it's that important. Just, sorry,
Well,
give me
there's
a
only
call,
so much
send me a
time in your
text.
day.
Yeah, and that's what people fail to understand. There's only so much time up there, and as a legislator, a lot of times you're getting beat up and hounded and harassed from the time you walk into that place to almost to the time you leave, if not even after that. Getting people in your face, coming up talking to you. And I'm not talking about the regular citizens, I'm talking about these lobbyists. They will send you text messages after hours. I get text messages on weekends. Um, you know, it's like, can you people back off for 5 minutes and just leave me alone? You know, um, it's like I've got you get emails and all kinds of stuff that you want a little time to relax. I'm going to throw this in the mix too. Between all that, with all that going on, you still have a family, you
Right.
know, and it really sucks when you have to cut your family off because of all the crap going on up there. And I realized that it's not worth it. I didn't spend my life, working and having a beautiful family and everything to get involved in this kind of cesspool up there, only to have it destroyed by the same cesspool. Um, and this session was the worst, just the worst.
So I know not too long ago you filed a lawsuit
Mm-hmm.
about over the tobacco lobbyists. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So that started before session, and I got a call from the speaker who uh, who informed me that he had put a placeholder in for um, tobacco and nicotine bill, and I know it as the registry bill, um, and that's through Altria Corporation, Philip Morris Altria, and so I'm like, okay, and he had no idea what it was about. So the wife and I sat there and explained it to him that that bill would basically decimate uh, any vape shop or anything like that in the state of Montana. It would shut down approximately 65, 70 different stores, a couple of manufacturers. You're going to put people out in the unemployment line because you're going to have to lay off all your workers. I said, it'd be devastating. And, and it was like, okay, well, we were told a couple things. Maybe I won't pull the bill. Maybe I won't, I'll just leave it die. That's great. Fine. Whatever. Just know that that bill's bad news. So later on down the line, we find out that the bill was written by a tobacco lobbyist. And if you know anything about junk files, you can pull the junk file. His name, Mark Baker's on that junk file. He wrote the bill. And so then the bill was pulled and edited and tweaked and all this stuff. I think it's 354 pages worth of junk file and communications and everything in there. And so then they were in search of a sponsor. And so I talked to a couple people that they'd approached, and they said, absolutely not. Well, I carry that. Well, then they found the one who happens to be Representative Amy Regier, who's the chair of Judiciary, and they got her to take it. And I had talked to her. I think my wife had talked to her. Several people had talked to her and asked her please not to do that. And it's like she just didn't care. Well, then we find out later that, she got money from the tobacco corporations too. Altria gave her $400 for her campaign. The attorney general was the one pushing this thing. He wrote the op-ed, and suddenly everything started coming together. It was like, wait a minute. Altria and Reynolds were two of the platinum sponsors at his big inaugural bash on the 11th of January. Well, I don't know if you knew anything about that or if anybody went to that. I can tell you what, it wasn't no $5,000 check to pay for that. It was a heck of a lot more. And it suddenly became clear that with his involvement in what he was doing, he was pushing this thing. It was his baby. So there's where the pressure comes from the AG's office onto leadership, right, with big tobacco stacked on top. So now you have a speaker who is between a rock and a hard space, and, they're squeezing him and he's squeezing everything he can to, and there's no way he's going to get out of that. If he kills it, he knows his political future's dead, so we became, the industry became the sacrificial lamb. And no matter what you do or say or how it goes, the problem is it took this long to figure out that he would tell me what I wanted to hear. And at the same time, stringing people out, and the lies and the deceit were just, it got to the end to be too much. It was just like, I can't believe that, you've got colleagues up there who are supposed to be conservative Republicans, pro-business, anti-tax and all that would sit there and just vote to annihilate one of your own. It's kind of like, what did I ever do to you? What did I ever do to you? Just happened to be on the target list of big tobacco. So when that all came out, I started researching some stuff on the master settlement agreement, and I found a provision in there from the contract from back in 1998 that said that the tobacco lobbyists can't lobby against anything but a tobacco tax. They're denied lobbying for or against any bill. And in tracking back to 2015, they'd lobbied against Clean Indoor Air Act bills. They've lobbied against tax increases, which are allowed, but they've lobbied against anything that, we tried to put restrictions on access to youth access restrictions. They lobbied against that. I mean, you name it, they lobbied against it, violating these provisions. They were supposed to read and sign a certified letter saying that they've read the provisions and they understood what their limits are. Couldn't find that. Don't know who carries that. So we ended up going, well, the attorney general is just as heavily compromised as them, well, we'll do it ourselves. And so our attorneys filed in U.S. District Court in Missoula, and that was an interesting scenario. We went there, and of course, they were trying to blow it off as that's nothing big, no big deal, yada yada. Well, then why did they send 9 high-profile, high-end attorneys from all over the country out there to fight that thing, to little old Missoula, if it was a nothing burger? You tell me. So there's this bill. There's millions of dollars spent to get this bill passed in every state in the union before June 1st. I'm saying.
Wow. So do
Yeah.
you see, I mean, it would probably apply to lobbyists in general, but do you see them lobbying just for their own bills, or is this something that's more across the board, where maybe they are trying to influence other bills that have nothing to do with them in order to put enough pressure on to get their bill passed? Tell me if that's part of the combination or not.
Oh yeah, yeah, that goes on all the time. You know, if you don't support this bill, you know, we're going to lobby against that bill. They have these little dark horses up there that run around, and you know, they'll get 2 or 3 of these younger lobbyists to, you know, and they'll get them together, and they'll it's like a dog trainer. They get the 3 of them together, they give them a pep talk and send them in. Um, Go lobby against this guy's bill because, you know, he's not supporting us, or he's against us, or we just don't like him. Um, you know, there's a couple of those guys running around up there, and so you end up fighting that, but then you find out that that guy is tied in with the other guy who's tied in with the other guy, and it's all one big food chain up there. And you've got big tobacco lobbyists that also represent AT&T. You've got big tobacco lobbyists that represent, you know, like the pot industry, like Bloom here in Montana. You've got them up. They work in alcohol as well. I mean, all you name some of the big corporations, these guys represent those guys, and the corporations, they'll pay anything to make sure that they're not put out to pasture or they got dibs on something. They will lobby a bill that's going to give them almost a guaranteed shot, like AT&T. You know, if it gives them anything, a guaranteed shot at securing the market, they'll do it. You know, Spectrum, any of those guys, they'll lobby to get it. So don't think that for a minute up there that the little guys have a chance. Um, no, they might get a scrap. They might carve something off and say, okay, you can have this, but the rest of it's ours. Uh, yeah, they'll carve a bill up 6 ways from Sunday, because they do have the thing called a carve out, and I've seen it used all the time, all the time.
Wow.
Yep.
So is most of this manipulation and influence, do you think, um, has just been kind of what we've discussed so far, or do you see additional things happening, like we see nationally, where people are paid large amounts of money
Hmm.
to, for bills and for pushing different language? Do you see any of that happening, or is it mostly just this pressure and manipulation?
That you see, but the money, the background payments. Just today, you saw, I don't know if you were paying attention to some of the state news across the nation. Um, there was a senator that stood up in the South Carolina Senate. They stood right there and said that the trial lawyers offered him between $50,000 and $100,000 to vote. I think it was for or against a bill. Anyway, he just came right out on the Senate floor and said, "Yeah, they tried to bribe me." And I guess the Senate went straight into recess. So I don't know. I haven't been able to get on and find out what happened over there, but it was a big kerfluffle. And I'm like, this is exactly what I'm talking about right here. What do you know? You know, the lobbyists are supposed to report to COPP their expenditures, and you know the candidates are supposed to report what they got, both cash and in-kind contributions. A lot of that doesn't happen. In fact, I had an audit report from Legislative Audit on COPP because I was going to help Chris get a COPP director, um, help him with some of those things because he agreed there's a big problem with the lobbyists and how they're registered and how they report, and the system's all messed up. So when you've got a flawed system when it comes to lobbyist reporting and all that, well, man, I mean, it's like, hey, the machine's broken. We can get away with just about anything. We'll just worry about covering it up later, or we may not even have to worry about it. And that's what we're looking at. And the legislative audit said that there was, I think, 38 out of 50 had failed to file their compliance forms. They're supposed to say, okay, in this quarter, I spent so much money here in expenditures for this, that, and everything. You can go on there and look at it right now, and half of it's blank. It's like you're getting paid. I know you're getting paid $60,000-$70,000 a year to represent that corporation here in Montana and their interest, but I know you get an expense account too. Well, how much is that expense account? And how many checks go directly from wherever the headquarters is, okay, through another LLC who's not in the name of the lobbying LLC? Do you see what I'm doing? There's laundering. It's darn near what's going on is darn near RICO charges. It's insane.
Wow.
It is insane. And I got people here that are worried about who's going to take my place up there when everybody yells about corruption. We got to weed out the corruption. Here it is. But no, it's just like,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes your
Wow,
head
Ron.
explode.
Well, you've given us so much to think about today. We're going to have to wrap it up for this session.
Sure.
But is there anything that you would like to really leave the viewers with? Uh, any words of wisdom or something to really pay close attention to?
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter who's up there, but if you want change, you have to get rid of the special interests. Don't worry about who's in the seat or you got to get rid of the special interest. And until we do that, your voice is never going to be heard. And, you may think it is, but it's not. You got to get rid of the special interests. You got to get rid of the lobbyists. You got to get rid of that, because until you can make elected officials actually accountable and answer to you, I'm supposed to be up there representing these people. And I always thought I did a good job at it. I'm like, how would my people, I know my people, how would they feel about this? I know how they'd feel about that. And then you're told to vote the opposite way. No, get rid of the special interests. Keep your eyes open and don't believe, a lot of what you hear about, well, that guy's just, he's just out for himself. No, I'm out for the country. I mean, the state, the people. Wake up, pay attention. I mean, we're corrupted from the top down, and it's time to clean house.
Wow. Well, that's a great great word to leave us with for the day. Ron, we really appreciate your service. We really appreciate how hard you've worked and trying to uh, hold that line really strong here. I understand that sometimes it's just not worth it,
Oh yeah,
and your mental health. And sometimes we just have to know when enough's enough. And I
yeah.
respect that as well. But we really appreciate the 3 terms here that you've had in the legislature, and we really appreciate you coming to speak with us today.
Well,
Hope it
I
isn't the
think.
last time.
Well, no, I thank you, and I was just going to say, if you want more, but wait, there's more. So, anytime.